So today we're going to break down a really interesting online commentary that connects the dots between three worlds you'd probably never put in the same sentence: Hollywood celebrity drama, high-stakes global politics, and some really big questions about morality. We're going to see how one take attempts to link a pop star, a US senator, and a former president, all through this one powerful idea of influence.
And believe it or not, this whole thing seems to hang on this one simple question, supposedly from a series of unsealed text messages. I mean, on its own, it sounds like nothing, right? But as we're about to see, it's presented as the key that unlocks a much, much bigger story.
So, where does that question lead? Well, it apparently kicks off a story that's been getting a ton of buzz online. A supposed plot against the actor Justin Baldoni that was apparently all planned out in a text chain between two of the biggest names in Hollywood. So this text, which is supposedly from Taylor Swift, is really the heart of the whole plan. The idea here wasn't just to go on the attack, but to actually use the target's own words, his own public persona, as the weapon against him. It's a very calculated and, according to this commentary, a deeply personal way to do it.
And here's the supposed follow-up from Blake Lively. This message is framed as proof of a coordinated, patient plan. You know, the phrases "worth the wait" and "it's the only way" really suggest this wasn't just some strategic move, but that they felt it was completely justified.
So the big idea here is that these private texts were just the beginning, right? The setup for something very, very public. The alleged goal? To spark a damaging story in the media, basically using the press to settle a score and completely tear down someone's reputation.
Okay, so stick with me here, because this is where the commentary takes a huge leap. The argument being made is that this same kind of backroom influence and public maneuvering isn't just a Hollywood thing. It pivots straight to the halls of government, suggesting a similar game is being played, but with stakes that are, well, a whole lot higher. We're talking geopolitical.
So, to get us into this political side of things, the analysis starts with this absolutely wild number: $93 billion. That's what the Pentagon supposedly spent in just 1 month. And it highlights some pretty specific things, like millions on king crab and over $100,000 on ice cream machines, to create this really stark contrast with the sacrifices regular people are asked to make.
And this is where that contrast really hits home. The commentary puts that seemingly crazy spending right next to this quote from Senator Lindsey Graham. He's talking about the real human cost of war, asking his own constituents to send their kids to fight. And when you see those two things side by side, it's a powerful and pretty unsettling comparison.
And you can just feel the raw political pushback here. On one side, you've got Senator Graham's position, and he's framing it as if he's giving friendly advice. But then on the other side, his opponent, Dr. Annie Andrews, just fires back with this incredibly blunt rejection of his whole point, even throwing his own as a friend line right back at him.
Okay, so now another big name gets pulled into this whole web: former President Donald Trump. And the suggestion here is that there might be a hidden reason for this sudden, intense push for some kind of foreign conflict.
And listen to this. This is what Representative Thomas Massie says happened on a phone call he got from the former president. He describes it as this incredibly angry, threatening call. You know, a real display of raw political muscle being used against a member of his own party.
So that brings up a huge question, right? Why? Why so much anger? The commentary suggests that a reaction that extreme must have an equally extreme cause, something that goes way beyond just a simple disagreement on policy.
And here's where the theory gets really explosive. The speculation is that Massie was targeted because he was trying to get the files related to the Jeffrey Epstein case released, files that many believe could have damaging information about some very powerful people. So, in this view, the whole push for war gets reframed. Was it a distraction, or even a kind of high-stakes blackmail to keep those secrets buried? I mean, that is a huge accusation, but that's the dot the commentator's connecting here.
So this is where it all comes together. We've seen celebrity influence, we've seen political pressure, we've seen these alleged cover-ups, and all of these threads are woven together to ask a much bigger question about leadership, about character, and what morality really means.
And to make this final point, the commentator uses a pretty unusual measuring stick. This slide takes criteria straight from the Bible, from the Gospel of Matthew, things like feeding the hungry and healing the sick, and uses it to evaluate the actions of two public figures, Donald Trump and Zoran Mamdani. Now, the table isn't filled out completely, but the point being made is that maybe actions, not just what someone says they believe, are the real measure of a person's values.
And so, after all that, we're left with this final question. After looking at influence used in text messages and in calls for war, we're asked to think about what really defines a leader. Is it the faith they talk about, the power they have, or is it the actual impact of their actions on people? It's a challenge, really, to look past all the noise and decide for ourselves how we measure the leaders we choose to follow.